Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Annassa. Can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear. Okay, good. Good. So let's start with meditation. So take your attention inside. And breathe to the point where your energetic field touches the dirt. So you're breathing down to ground yourself in the dirt. And feel into that space. And feel for alignment with that space. Just feel into the space between the breaths and hold your attention there where your energy touches the dirt. And breathe into that space. Now gently allow your attention and your energy to rise to the tip of your tailbone. Breathe into that space and feel between the breaths. Because who and what we are is located between the breaths. Gently allow your attention to rise to the point 2 fingers below your belly button. Feel into this energy center, breathe into it, and feel for the space between the breaths. Align yourself with that. Gently allow your attention to rise to the solar plexus. Breathe into that spot, just at the base of the front of your rib cage. Feel into the space between the breaths as you hold your attention there. Gently allow your attention to rise to your heart center in the middle of your chest. Breathe into that center and feel for the space between the breaths. Gently allow your attention to rise to the throat center. Breathe into that space. Feel for the space between the breaths. Allow your awareness to just drop into that space. Gently allow your attention to rise to the third eye, above, behind, and between your eyebrows, in the center of your head. Breathe into that space and feel for the space between the breaths. Drop your attention into that space. Gently allow your attention to rise up and out the top of your head. Feel for the huge open flower with 1,000 petals that fans open to receive pranic plasma, that divine healing substance from the all that is, that rains down on us like a shower of love. Allow this pranic plasma to come into your entire physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual being. Love permeates everything. And now take your attention to the point above your head where your fingertips would touch if you made a halo around your head. Hold your attention on that point and breathe into it, allowing your attention to rest in the space between the breaths. Now become aware of the central channel and the current flowing upward and out the top of your head and around your entire body as it flows downward. Through your biofield and gathers beneath you, comes up and informs your central channel. Be aware of this flow. And align your breathing with it. Feel your entire system as an open channel for pranic plasma. When you're ready, gently allow your attention to come back to a more outward focus. And we'll begin our question and answer program. Welcome this morning. How may we serve you? So happy to be here. So we're open for questions. So we want to talk about whatever you want to know about.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Great.
So happy to see you guys.
So good to see you too. You're so beautiful.
Oh,
Yes.
Thank you. So are you. It's really wonderful to be here. What can we do for you this morning?
What's going on with the heat?
Oh,
Any
well,
comments?
Well, we're experiencing it as heat. Other people are experiencing it as fire. Other people are experiencing it as drought. I mean, this is the climate changing. It's adapting to all the forces that have been unleashed by the destruction of our forests throughout the planet. And it's a demonstration of our inability to act in union for the highest best of the planet and our own survival. That's sort of the stark reality of it. And, you know, of course, we're learning from it. Whether we're going to learn in time remains to be seen. But we would maintain that the highest action that any of us can do at this time is to focus our attention inward and become the love that we are. Because the power of this action is beyond our imagination. Because what happens is, as we do this, our sphere of influence expands, even though we're not particularly aware of it or even thinking about it, because we're doing this. You know, the simple reason to do it is because there's nothing that feels better, really, than being in contact with love itself, becoming that love itself. Now, it does mean that we have to be honest about pretty much everything, or we can't sustain it. And that honesty often brings painful realizations. But those painful realizations, because of their truth, really keep us focused on our own growth. And in a way, there's this feedback system between allowing ourselves to come into understanding of who and what we really are. And, you know, if anything positive has come out of this pandemic, and quite a bit has, one of the things is that the isolation that we have experienced has really helped our inward growth. And if you look at all the people around you in our, you know, occasional intersection now that we're, I don't know, between pandemic experiences, I don't know what we're in at this moment. sort of seems like that, but if you feel into the people around you when you meet, everyone has been transformed by this experience. Everyone has become more deeply aligned with inner purpose. And there is no greater gift than this. There is no greater gift than this, because this is our salvation. Our salvation is in coming to understand that we are love itself. That's what we are. And as we spend more time alone and focus our attention inside, that's the understanding that comes. And that's a huge relief. I mean, of course, we don't really think about what we are until we're given the opportunity or the directive, or something happens and we give up in despair, or we get so delighted we want to sustain it. I mean, these experiences all lend themselves to going inside and saying, what is really happening here? And once we understand that the name of the game is love, then its exploration of that love is what drives us. And yes, understanding that love involves pain. And that's just the truth of it. But everything about life involves pain, in case you haven't noticed. And so it's not like we can avoid it. And so we might as well serve it. And really, by serving it, what we mean is facing it directly and allowing it to change us, to inform us about who and what we really are. And really feeling and holding our attention in these energy centers to begin to have some experience of flow. Because once we experience the flow in ourselves, and then the flow between ourselves and another person, once we start to get the hang of that, it's pretty much addicting. And then everything becomes the experience of this flow in and around ourselves and between each other. And then we begin to see what encourages that flow, what shuts it down, what makes it bigger. And as we experience that, then we start to understand that we live primarily in an energy field, and that the energy, we are transmitters and receivers of energy. That's our primary function, is receiving and transmitting. And when we understand that, we can begin to participate more directly with it, in it. And when we understand that every frequency is at its core love, then we can demand that we become that. There's very little we have control over, and it's all inside us. And it takes a long time, or, unless you're fantastically gifted. And some people are fantastically gifted. They look inside, they feel, and they know. Sometimes that happens. I'm not one of those people, but for me, it's a lot of work. But you hold your attention inside, and the real point of any faith at any moment in our lives is to have the faith that our inner endeavor will pay off. That putting our attention inside is going to bring us to what it is that we want to truly experience. And that if we hold our attention there long enough, we will begin to understand who and what we are and why we're here. And that information transcends any other experience we could have in this life. And it changes everything. From that moment of recognition that we are love itself, and that alignment is being part of that flow. And that alignment is about allowing ourselves to participate rather than trying to control anything except our attention. When it comes right down to it, the only thing we have any control over is our attention. So where are we looking for our fulfillment? Are we looking inside or outside? And very often when we go inside, no matter where we put our attention, the first thing that happens is a whole litany of complaints. And that's because we don't listen. And so everything in there is clamoring for our attention. And so as we hold our attention between the breaths and really feel for that which is not created or destroyed, that which is the source of all, which is beyond our linear experience to articulate. We can only point to it with words like love, peace, joy, and gratitude. But as we feel into that, we begin to understand that life itself is love, loving itself. And we always have a choice, because understand that everything that is participating in the wholeness of ultimate reality. So there is nothing that is outside that. So if we experience murderous rage within ourselves, that's not an excuse to condemn ourselves. It's an opportunity to recognize that we contain everything that there is, and everything that there is contains us. But we have a choice about how we behave. We're going to resonate more with some things and less with other things, always. But we choose our behavior. We definitely choose. And with practice, we choose what we resonate with. And this is how we become more and more aligned with the highest for everything that exists on this planet. And imagine if just one person were able to sustain that connection to the highest. what would happen with that person? They would have a lot of friends. Because everyone would want to be part of that experience. So there's no reason why anybody on this call can't become that experience. No reason. Our only limitation is between our ears. And we choose that limitation because we allow it to take our attention. But if instead we put our attention on discovering what the highest is within us, instead of, very often we look for the lowest. You know, this is the problem with self-improvement. We're looking for the thing that needs to be improved, that we can focus our attention on next. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with that, but you can see it's not the same as focusing on the highest possibility that exists within us. So that highest possibility has a definite energetic content to it. And as we learn to recognize that experience and expand that within ourselves, this is a lot of what our purpose is in communicating with you, is acquainting you with that feeling experience so that you can continue to grow it and discover it for yourself. Take ownership of it. Because it's the ground we all walk on. It's not anything you've never felt before. And for a certain amount of time, it's easy to miss. And then once you get the flavor of it, then you can start to really go with it and let it go with you. You know, the thing about this love is that all it wants to do is expand and inform us. It's we who get afraid or choose other things, or mostly it's distraction, I think. One thing that the pandemic has done for a lot of people is make our lives less complicated. We can focus our attention more inside because we don't have gazillion things to do in a day. Does that answer your question? Okay, good. Good. How may we serve further? We kind of riffed on that one for a while. Hmm. You know, joy is really there anytime we want to experience it. It's really possible. Hmm. Yes, Suzanne.
Can you
There
hear
you
me now? Okay.
Yes.
I'd like to continue with that theme just a little bit more. You said our only limitation is between our ears, so we should focus on the highest possibility that exists within us. Could you expand on that highest possibility that exists within us? Is this a way of being? Is it doing? Is it a combination? Is it a way of, I'm having a little hard time just sort of grabbing on to what all that means.
So, it's sort of a cop-out to say this, but that which is beyond is not linear. So it's beyond our linear language of cause and effect, of doing and not doing. Being, the experience of being without doing, without wanting. The experience of allowing love to rise up within us. And it's not as though what we're talking about is some other. So much of our life is a quest to accumulate some other that we think that we need to be whole. And really, it's contact with what is that is our fundamental birthright. And the expansion of awareness is one way we could say it. It's the we're stymied about how to put it into words. It's very much felt experience.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it's the source of all flow, the source of everything that is. Like if you feel into what is, and then you feel underneath that, and you feel underneath that, and you feel underneath that, and you feel underneath that, that which is at the bottom of all of it, that is source energy. So what we're doing in this moment is amplifying that experience and making it available. So the thing to do in this moment is to allow yourself to receive. And the easiest way to receive is through the breath. So you take your own breath and you breathe directly into your heart center in the middle of your chest. And you feel, you just feel, and you allow. Feel and allow. Those two words point to the experience of union. And for many, many people, the experience of sexual union is how they first get the flavor of what's available. But that's only a the orgasmic experience is a hint of what's there, but it's not. It's more than that.
Mhm. Mhm.
But it encompasses every experience that we ever have. It's the source of every experience that we have. There's nothing that's separate from it.
Hmm.
You know, it's very much like trying to describe the taste of sugar to somebody who's never tasted it. It's like, well, yeah, you can say it's sweet.
Yeah.
But if you don't know what sweet really tastes like, then you're left with this sort of, and this thing that we point to with love, peace, joy, gratitude as, you know, the pointer experiences to take us toward it, it has everything to do with expansion into the field of the all that is. Yeah, you're getting it. Now just breathe into that and allow it to permeate every cell of your body. And you may notice that there's a little rhythm to it. It's alive. That's the main thing, is it's living.
Mhm.
And you just allow it to inform every cell of your body. We can call it pranic plasma, that's true. It's completely healing. It nourishes everything that it touches. Hmm. We feel it. You're welcome. How may we serve further?
Good morning, Rebecca.
Good morning, Drew. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. In trying to coordinate this feeling of this awareness, it's been suggested for me to explore my need for a new housing situation and a new career, to use a vision board. And in starting that process, it feels a little, of course, outward, because these are the outward parts of life. And I want to wonder if there's some some suggestions for how to coordinate and align that going inside with these outside characteristics of our existence.
So this is a really interesting question, and we're glad you asked it, because the way we're going to take it is that you're asking a question about spiritual materialism.
Mhm. Yes.
Which is really a question about where abundance comes from. Is it spiritual to participate in abundance? Is it not spiritual to participate in abundance? Is it, well, let's just start from where we are. So the truth is, you can't really live well without abundance. None of us can. So abundance is a requirement at a certain point in our spiritual practice. We need abundance so that we don't have to spend our entire life accumulating what we need just to survive. So a certain amount of abundance is absolutely imperative for all of us. There is nothing wrong with it. And having what we need to live well should not take everything that we have, all of our attention and all of our energy, because then there's nothing left to really be a spiritual person, to really experience ourselves as spirit, to really be in alignment with the love that we are. So living well is actually required. And I mean, a certain amount of abundance is required. And so it's not wrong use of our spirituality to ask for what we need and to visualize what it is that will make us happy. Because if the goal is happiness, then are we just going to pursue it inwardly and forget about the outside? But we're both inside and outside. We are physical, we are material as well as spiritual. And so there's no contradiction in taking care of ourselves throughout the various environments that we inhabit. That is not a contradiction, and it's not unspiritual to participate in our own survival and the quality of our survival. That's just being human and being real about what's required. And so it's important that you spend some time thinking about what it is about a physical environment that makes you, that is conducive for you to do good inner work. What is it that you require? And so you can think about that and feel into it, and the joy that arises in you from that experience is part of what attracts it to you. So it's important that you visualize not only what it is that you want, but how you're going to feel in having it.
Okay.
Because it's that feeling that contains the inspiration and the magnetism that attracts it to you. So it's not enough just to have a vision. The vision has to be a felt experience. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And that part about the incorporating feeling into that kind of brings it all together for me in terms of where I need to go.
But it's an immaturity of spiritual vision to think that accumulation of what we need is not in our highest best interest. That somehow if we take a vow of poverty, that that is going to make us breatharians.
And we don't need to live in a cave. I think that may be one route for some person in another time.
If a cave makes you really happy, go for it. You know, sooner or later you're going to need a shower, so hot water is going to be important. So it can be evolutionary in that way, and for lots of us it has been. You know, I know that when I was an adolescent, I thought spiritual meant, you know, poverty. I did. It was many hard lessons to get that wasn't a requirement.
Thank you very much.
You're so welcome. Love the question. Yes, I also bought the Starving Artist one. That one did that one for a long time too. Not required. These are matrix of belief ideas that can really, you know, they create obstructions. At least they did here. They're not necessary. Having is part of being joyful. Now, it's also been an observation that people who cannot have and not want at the same time often come to a startling degree of happiness. If you notice in other cultures where people don't have, but they feel abundant inside and there's joy. Have you seen that in other cultures? It's definitely possible. So we're not saying that having is required to be happy. We're saying there's no reason to diss yourself for having or not having. But that having, especially at our age and stage of life, makes everything a lot easier to continue to have a spiritual life. But it's not completely required, as you can see, especially with young people in other cultures and old people in other cultures. We've really seen it. That, you know, if you make happiness your priority, then you get happiness, and what you get in addition to that may or may not look completely fulfilling to other people. But we will say again, there's nothing wrong with spiritual materialism. It's totally okay. How may we serve further? Quiet. Anything from you, Brenda?
I've been recognizing some real fear coming up based on an interaction, a relationship. You know, it's at work with other, and I don't know if it's just my history of the experience coming up, or if it's true for me to just be hyper cautious And I know I want to be able to come from love and possibility, and I'm finding it harder to get in that space. And is there, so am I just acting on past, and what is the best way to, or how do I ground myself in that, truly ground myself in that space on a daily basis?
Well, the first thing to do when dealing with somebody complicated is to prepare for any interaction by going to the Annassa temple first. So before you even go to work, you can have a morning practice where you sit down and there's several ways you can practice. One of the things you can do is ask to be in alignment with what is the highest best for this person and you, and where that intersection of your highest and their highest intersects. Where that happens is where you want to be with that person. And you request to experience that alignment and to be shown how to create that on a daily, minute-to-minute basis. And then you make yourself available for that experience in the exchange, which means that you will be paying attention rather than protecting, which you know you can't really do. You know, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And, you know, there's no reason also that you can't give yourself an out, and you can even ask a superior if this is okay. But you should at any moment have the option of getting up and leaving without a word. You give yourself that option so that you know that if someone is attacking you in a personal way, that you can protect yourself. You can just walk away. And we would advise you to make that option available to you by verbalizing it in the appropriate moment so that you know that you don't ever have to be anywhere where you don't feel safe. And that's a way of just flushing the experience as it's happening. You just get up and walk away. That is your signal. I can't be here. And so you should make that option a part of your vocabulary. Having done that, then you can focus on the flow. And if the flow is like this, then you try to find a space to get around that and understand where this is coming from, where the hurt is that's making that. And it may be like this, you know, that the person's trying to, and you understand what it is in them that needs that, so that you can find the compassion in you to be in the highest. Because once you can see like what the drivers are, then the compassion will just flood. Because you'll see that the distortion that's been created in this human being is like beyond pain you can imagine. Because that's what it takes to create a distortion like this. So you can sort of know that on the front side, and that in your quest for the highest, the intersection with the person's highest, you're actually wanting to see the pain so that you can help. So that's really what our purpose is in any relationship, is to bring it to a kind of fulfillment where there's flow and understanding, and whatever's possible in this space with this person becomes accessible. That's really what you want to make happen. And, with some people, it's a lot easier than others. And you've been given the gift of complications.
I thought I had the gift of ease because this person has no power over me. I mean, it's not my boss. My boss is amazing and truly the other side of the spectrum, maybe a true spectrum from this.
Mhm.
So I have that support to get up and walk away, I believe. And thank you for saying that. I didn't want to come from compassion, but before I have the ability to do that, that's why I couldn't access it, because I needed to ground myself in their highest and best first.
And it's also okay to be afraid. Fear comes up. Fear comes up. And fear is an interesting, your own fear is an interesting thing to become acquainted with. Because when that fear arises, it's an opportunity to say, oh, hello, fear. Am I in danger? And you look around and you understand that the danger is psychological. Nobody's going to hit you physically, as far as you know. I mean, maybe they are, and then you really get to walk away. But, the likelihood of physical damage happening to you in that environment is slim to none. So what you're really afraid of is a psychological attack. So when you understand that there's no part of you that's really vulnerable to that, because where's the power to follow through with anything? There isn't any. Right? So it's a paper tiger waving at you. And if you choose to take negative energy full force because they have no other place to put it, there's a way you can turn yourself sideways and become a very, very small target, and it just goes past you, through you. It's not yours. And there's no way. People have, and we all have this because of our matrix of belief. We are all schooled to the idea from a very young age that if we want to change somebody else's behavior, the way to do it is to pour acid on them. The acid of our anger, rage, fear, whatever negativity we have, we think if we dump it on the other person, it will somehow magically change their behavior and they will never, do that to us again. Now, they may not even have known what they did. It's our sensitivity that got inspired to dump poison on them. But, if you look at your own experience, how many times has anger actually gotten you what you wanted? Usually it doesn't change anybody's behavior but our own, and we act kind of idiotic in the moment because we're suddenly spewing poison. You watch and you see which has more power. If you really love somebody, if you really treat them as well as you possibly can, what happens to how they behave? They rise up and give you back what you're giving them. How beautiful is that? And if you pour poison on them, what do? They either run away, if they can, or they pour poison back. Then you're really off to the races. Trading poison for poison. That changes relationships by destroying them. So what we want is flow of love, peace, joy, and gratitude. And through that flow, ultimately discovering that which is beyond. So the way to do that is to declaw our own fangs, absorb our own poison, not dump it on other people. And as we express more and more love, peace, joy, and gratitude, we will get more and more of that back. And in the people who still choose poison because they don't know any better, we can be compassionate because they truly don't know any better. Nobody has told them that that doesn't work. And if we're lucky, we might get the opportunity to share that piece of information. If we're lucky. It doesn't help if we try to tell somebody who thinks poison works that it doesn't work. They have to learn that from their own experience. So, you know, most of the time in the world, we end up being quiet because people don't want to know what we have to say, and they can't hear it until they're ready. That's the simple truth of it. They have to ask the question. She won't ask the question. So you just do the best you can to teach her that poison doesn't work. But
Have
Oh.
I been given this to work on it personally? Is if, as we wish for the highest and greatest good for everybody, is this truly my highest and greatest good to have to be able to face an abusive leader in maybe I have more tools than I know that I'm trusting sometimes in the moment? Like, is this something I have to get past? I don't want to, yet here I am.
you couldn't have it presented to you in a better way. You couldn't be more supported in the situation. And so, and you've also been informed that it's temporary. You know, temporary means a minimum 5 months, probably a maximum, given all the factors in this situation. Given its similarity to another experience you had fairly recently, it does kind of lend itself to the idea that possibly this is an area where your expanded expertise could benefit you. So if you go into it with that idea, how does that change the feeling that you approach it with? That it's really part of your personal growth and understanding to take on this task.
That, that did show up for me. So in the vein of, I have more tools to handle it than I'm trusting, and going back on muscle memory of similar energy and behavior is not, I don't need to live there, that I really do have, trusting that I do have more tools to manage it.
And there are probably more tools to have, there are, social groups that are available for dealing with personality types that you might be able to belong to temporarily, even with support from your work, to educate yourself about how best to be in the role that you occupy and make as much flow as possible without getting hit in the situation. There may be tools that you don't know about quite yet, but you sort of know the direction to look for. So you did this at one point, and yeah, you might do a little more of that.
Okay.
And you have people in your life that know more than you do that you can use as a resource. And it would be valuable to cultivate those people anyway. And this gives you an excuse, another way in that realm. So, yeah, we all have difficult people in our lives that for one reason or another, we don't feel like we can tell them the truth. This is a very important role for the Annassa temple. Whenever we have a relationship that's difficult, that we can't deal with in the external world, that we can't talk to the person directly, because we know that the feedback we get will not help either one of us. This is a place to go to the Annassa temple and work with ourselves, looking for the highest best, and work with the other person, requesting the highest best. But whenever we go to the Annassa temple, we are taking our highest best and we are requesting from their highest best. It's very important that we not invite the person as they are in reality at this moment in time to the Annassa temple, but the highest self of the person. Because we get totally different things if we slip up and ask the person who exists in the now to come to the Annassa temple. That's not what we're doing. Okay. We're not trying to change anybody but ourselves and our own understanding. And so when we take our highest self and we speak to their highest self, we are developing a flow of understanding of the two highest selves, which all have their source in the highest for all. And so everything is interwoven into the highest best. And that's where we get our real information that can change us and situations. How may we serve further?
Good morning, Becky. It's Margaret.
Good morning, Margaret. How you doing?
Good, thank you.
You're looking very beautiful this morning.
Oh, and so are you? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Along these lines, a little bit, it makes me think of Jasper, who you know, my dog, who was attacked, as a young dog by other dogs and is still dealing with the trauma. And I'm wondering if trying to figure out how to articulate it, is because do dogs have like a highest and best self? I mean, I know he's like protecting himself and protecting me, but is there a way for me to go to the temple and talk to him that he doesn't have to do that anymore? I'm just curious if that.
Well, certainly you can do that. And it's interesting about dogs because dogs, by and large, are just here to express love. That's
Right.
really what they do.
So why then does he show aggression to other dogs? I mean, I know it's from the trauma, but is there ever a place where they get to like closure or healing from the trauma? Is there more we can do as humans to assist?
Well, there's certainly homeopathic remedies that work for trauma.
For dogs?
Well, they work the same in dogs as they work for people.
Okay.
So yes. And so that's a possibility.
Because it's a trigger, similarly to when we as humans are dealing with somebody difficult, it triggers us.
Well, it's interesting because the simplicity. Dogs don't have free will the way people do.
Mm, mm.
So it's not like he's deciding to be difficult. But yeah, homeopathy can work. You can certainly try in the Annassa temple
Okay.
and just tell him that he doesn't need to do that because he's protected.
Okay.
That you will protect him. But then
Ah.
you have to protect him.
Okay. Thank you.
And it's quite possible that, you know, one or two of those experiences of you protecting him
Hmm.
might make a difference.
Oh, I never
It's an
thought of.
experiment. It's an experiment. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for
But
that.
you might as well try something different.
Right. I know. Good advice. We just love him so much. We just want him to be happy, you know.
Yes.
And that's-
Yes.
Happy when he's doing that because clearly he's triggered.
Well, part of his job is protecting you.
Right.
And so if you inform him that that's not really necessary,
Mhm.
it's hard though, he's pretty hardwired in that way.
He is pretty hardwired. We had a really bad day yesterday on our walk and he's been really good. And so I was just curious. Yeah,
Well,
just
try having a dialogue and see what happens.
okay.
Hmm.
That's all. I will. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Mhm.
What else? Paul?
New moon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're talking about Aslacia?
Maybe that's why the dog had a rough day.
Well, it's interesting. Aslacia is the nakshatra that the moon is in today. And Aslacia is in Cancer. In Vedic astrology, it's in it's the 9th nakshatra. And the nakshatras are houses of the moon. And there are 27 houses of the moon, and each one of them has a different, we could call it a personality. And so Aslacia is, well, it's first of all ruled by Ketu, and Ketu is one of the nodes of the moon, and it tends to dissolve everything it touches. So there's a sense of dissolution in this nakshatra. And it looks like a coiled snake in the sky, Aslacia. And it's considered a demon nakshatra in that that's its nature. And its deity is Ahi, the serpent god. It's a naga, a serpent nakshatra. And its power is, well, it's the Kundalini energy. So spiritual awakening is possible, great spiritual growth. This nakshatra is also located at a point between Cancer and Leo, where a water sign, Cancer, meets a fire sign, Leo. And so any planets that we might have in this intersection in our own horoscope might be slightly problematic, because going from a water sign to a fire sign is not that comfortable. There are 3 places that happens in the horoscope, and it's pretty intense. So that's what we can say about that. It's a pretty intense place to be. And if we have planets there, it's a little bit more intense. I happen to have Pluto right there. Pluto is the planet of death and rebirth. So nice and intense. So we're coming to the meditation time of our program. So this is our favorite thing. Let's go back into meditation. We have so much enjoyed talking with you this morning. It's always a joy to connect. So let's take our attention inside. Again, to where our energetic field meets the dirt, and breathe into that point in space. Feel into the union between the in-breath and the out-breath. Which is that space of that which is beyond. And just allow your attention to drop into that space. Gently allow your attention to rise up to the tip of your tailbone. Breathe into the space between the breaths. Drop your attention there and feel into that which is beyond. Gently allow your attention to rise to your sex chakra. Breathe into that space. Feel into that which is beyond, between the breaths. Allow your attention to drop into that space. When you're ready, bring your attention just below your belly button. Breathe into the space located there and drop your attention into the space between the breaths. Allow that which is beyond to come into your awareness. Gently allow your attention to rise up to your heart center in the middle of your chest. Breathe into that space and allow. Allow yourself to be informed of that which is beyond, which is between the breaths. Allow your attention to rise to your throat center. Swallow in that space. Allow yourself to become aware of the space between the breaths. Gently allow your attention to rise to the third eye, just above, behind, and between your eyebrows. When you're ready, allow your attention to come to the top of your head. Feel for the 1,000-petaled lotus that opens to receive pranic plasma from the multiverse. And now take your attention to the space above your head where your fingers would touch if you made a halo around your head. Breathe into that energy center and allow your attention to drop into that which is beyond. And now feel into your central channel. The energy coming up and out the top of your head, 360 degrees around you, falling down, gathering at the bottom, and coming back up again in an endless stream. Allow yourself to experience this biofield that we are. We are so grateful to each and every one of you for coming here this morning. Thank you so much for sharing with us and being with us. Till next week. Bye for now.